Well, there is a deal that's published in several news organizations, including some news organizations that are actually typically reliable anyway. Who knows about this? And I may dig into this a little bit with you in hour two. I've already posted my response if you're curious to look on social media. And I want you to understand, you and I, we are coming from the same position. That is, when I raise questions about any potential deal, I'm raising questions that I feel are legitimate and in the best interest of the United States. We, you and I, have not been involved in this process. I kind of regret that. I wish that there had been some role for the Senate at least, given their treaty power, at least the leadership there, and for we, the people. Whatever's decided affects you and me, all of us, just as it does under Democrats and Republicans alike, of course. But at some point it will be public, and certainly aspects of it, or at least reportedly, are public, if they're accurate. And the long and the short of it is they'd set up some kind of consortium on a Persian island where the nuclear material would be processed at around 3%, give or take, as I understand it, not going above the 3.67% level. And who would be the watchman over that is not clear to me. They talk about a consortium. That concerns me. The fact that it's on a Persian island, an Iranian island, that concerns me. But I'll tell you what concerns me most. This is in sort of an interim period of time in which this would occur. And then ultimately it's said that they would eliminate what they have. What if they don't? And how do we know about all their sites? And I can go on and on and on. So I have a concern here. I'm not sure I understand why we're taking these measures. The Iranian military is weaker than it's ever been. Its air defenses are weaker than they've ever been, although they've built them up over the last couple of months while we've been negotiating with them. But they're still not what they were, and during this multi-year period, of course, they're going to muscle up big time with the help of the North Koreans, the Communist Chinese, and, of course, the Russians in terms of their air defenses. And so they're going to want to buy time. Now, I don't even know if the Iranians will agree to this, but I'll get into it a little bit more detail based on published reports in the next hour, maybe hour three. We'll see. There are other things I want to hit, but this is very important. This is very, very important. And I want to inform you about it since really nobody else is. I mean, whether an enemy country, a terrorist regime, has a nuclear weapon that keeps talking about destroying us, it seems to me that's the first story of business. There are other things going on in the country as well. Now, this guy who tried to murder these elderly women with a self-made fire blowtorch and Molotov cocktails, he's got 5 children and a wife here. I'm thinking to myself, 5 children and a wife. This guy comes here illegally on a tourist visa. Then through the Biden regime. Then the Biden regime, really without any vetting, gives him a work permit. He violates that deadline too. He's got 5 children here in the United States, presumably using our public schools, presumably using our healthcare system, presumably using our resources, and his wife. And he hates us. And he hates the country. How many people like this are in this country, I wonder? And when the Supreme Court makes its decision on birthright citizenship, I hope they're paying attention to all these national security issues. Because that's a big deal, too, if not the biggest. Somebody comes here, they're pregnant, they come here from an enemy country that hates us. They have children here. Then you'll hear, well, we can't separate the children from the parents. Okay, all of you can leave. No, we can't do that. Then we get the sob stories about how they have their homes here and they've been here for several years. Who cares? And I haven't heard a cacophony, if you will, a chorus of Democrats And they're always out there screaming, whether it's Elon Musk or Hitler or Trump, whatever it is, condemning this, condemning Biden, condemning what's taken place here. I haven't heard it. Oh, there's one here and there, but not their typical organized attack mode. And they don't want to discuss this. And the media, to a great extent, wants to sweep this under the rug. They do hit and run, and then they move on. Carolyn Levitt's been fantastic. Absolutely fantastic in her comments about this. And I'm looking here. Give me a second. Let's go to cut 12, Mr. Producer. Yes, go right ahead.
According to reporting from Fox News, the alleged attacker admitted in an interview that he wanted to kill all Zionist people and had been planning the attack for over a year and would do it again if he could. This monster used a makeshift flamethrower and Molotov cocktails to light Jewish Americans on fire in an attempt to burn them alive. The victims at the incident location in Boulder were there to rally in support of Israeli hostages who remain in Hamas captivity. 12 were injured, including a Holocaust survivor. This is pure evil. The Department of Justice has already filed federal hate crime charges against the alleged perpetrator, and he will be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. This tragedy is a sobering reminder of the consequences of the Biden administration's failed policies. According to the Department of Homeland Security, the Boulder suspect is an Egyptian national who was in the United States illegally. He entered the U.S. during the Biden administration in August 2022 on a B-2 visa until it expired. Upon the visa expiration, he overstayed, filed an asylum claim, and was given a work authorization by the Biden administration. Instead of deporting this heinous individual, Joe Biden's administration allowed him to stay in our country and to work. President Trump sounded the alarm over these reckless Biden policies for years because this is the predictable result of letting anti-American radicals and illegal immigrants pour into our country. Immigration security is national security.
Excellent. Cut 13, go.
The president has made it very clear, as he said in his statement yesterday, that yes, these anti-Semitic acts of violence are do qualify as terrorism, and he does not want to see terrorism or violence of any form taking place in the United States of America. And as for specifically anti-Semitic terrorism and anti-Semitic acts of violence and those that are targeting Jewish Americans, this administration has done more to combat that violence than any administration in history. And one incident is one too many. And I think, frankly, that's something the previous administration was not willing to say. This president will stand up for Americans of all religions, of all faiths, of all creeds, and we will continue to look at policy measures and actions that we can take in addition to the actions that have already been taken to curb this anti-Semitic violence. And to Jewish Americans at home, across the country, this president has your back.
She's 100% right in what she says and where the president stands. 100% correct. And I'm grateful for Donald Trump. Grateful. Joe Biden would never have done any of this. In fact, he didn't. Neither did the people who ran his government. They didn't do anything. I hear almost nothing from the Democrats in Congress. Do you folks? Seriously, if you're hearing a lot from Democrats in Congress other than this is a terrible thing and people shouldn't resort to violence and then they move on, let me know. Let Mr. Producer know. Call in. You see no concerted effort by the Democrats to push back on any of this. Why? Because these are their universities. These are their immigrants. I'm being honest. They're migrants. These are their judges. These were their border policies. That was their Department of Justice. That was the Department of Education, which did all but nothing. And now this entire situation is blown up, and it's going to get worse before it gets better, much worse. I'd love people to say, I predicted there'd be terrorism. Everybody did. You'd have to be deaf, dumb, and blind not to see it, hear it, know it. And it is going to get worse. And we still have these activist left-wing judges who are endangering our country, fighting over whether we should have exported Venezuelan international gang thugs who've done grave damage to our country and were set here by the communist dictator of Venezuela illegally, open borders, and they want us to run through a whole bunch of procedures which they claim are constitutionally compelled. And they're not. And they're not. You know, in a different era, everybody understood this. The press, both parties, prosecutors and judges, that people like this needed to be removed and removed as quickly as possible. That there was no damage being done to due process or freedom of speech or anything of the kind. In fact, the whole goal here is to ensure our country, with its great liberties and rights, survives. But that's not the way it's working today. Today we are, as Lincoln would say, a country divided against itself. We are divided against ourselves. Not you and me. We have Marxist, Islamist elements in this country who want to take it down in any way possible. In any way possible. They hate the cops, they hate the military, they hate our borders. If you hate the cops, you hate our military, you hate our borders, then you are a supporter of rampant violence, because it's the cops, it's the military, and the existence of our sovereignty, our borders, that secures our liberty. Caroline Levitt's comments, Donald Trump's comments and actions in fighting anti-Semitism and trying to defend the Jewish community is unprecedented. Unprecedented. And so when you hear the Democrats throwing their barbs and their personal attacks, when you hear this sort of thing, just remember who it's coming from. Just remember.